The last church?
In my last church. So in one of the last church meetings,
Yeah.
like at the very beginning of the meeting, this guy jumps up before the meeting, he's going to be like, I move that we hold this meeting according to Robert's Rules of Order. and this is the worst part. We literally spent over an hour debating whether or not to use Robert's Rules.
Who is this Robert? I need to find out who he is.
Yeah, it's just terrible. Terrible stuff.
The
we don't
worst.
do that.
The worst meetings are run in Robert's Rules. Welcome to the Gathering Greenhouse, a podcast to help us grow together. I'm Steve.
I'm David.
I'm John.
Well, we got,
and we are the three amigos.
I don't know what that is. I just know there's some hand movements.
Yes. It's
So
hard to do in these chairs.
Yes. We had a busy Sunday yesterday, didn't we? Well, I guess you were watching this on
did.
Wednesday. I did.
I
mean, we had a lot going on. We had a busy Sunday, and then we had a Sunday night.
I didn't know
meeting.
if like there was like a run on the donuts or.
Oh no, we were fine there. It wasn't actually.
I need to run after the donuts.
It wasn't like overly.
It's better to have a run on the donuts than a run from the donuts.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That was a few weeks ago.
that's true. No, we actually did. We weren't too crazy crowded.
No, last weekend before school starts.
Last weekend, and
everybody's-
the weather was like fantastic.
I really didn't want to come to church.
Neither did I. Yeah, I would have rather been like camping or something. It would've been
Saturday
great.
night, I was like, I want to go camping right
Yeah.
now, and can't.
Yeah.
Well, it's supposed to be nice this week too.
Yeah. So, let's just put this out there. Like, if
Yeah.
you're watching this podcast right now, and there are Sunday mornings when you get up and you're like, I don't feel like going to church today, and you don't, you should, because we do.
You should go.
Yeah.
or
Like,
you should
what
not.
what would happen if we had that commitment level?
We get fired.
Yeah,
So
that's true.
why? Can you give us a why behind that? Why? Other than because the staff who gets paid to do it shows up.
Because I said so,
Okay.
Steve.
All right.
No, because we need to, like, there's a lot of reasons why it's important to go to church,
Yeah.
right? Because, especially if that's the only time you open your Bible, then you should really go to church. You shouldn't miss that. Which actually, that might be a really interesting study for someone to do, like a churchologist or something.
Yeah.
To see, like, if the amount of times you read the Bible during the week impacts the amount of times you go to church on Sunday, because my guess is that it's an inverse relationship than what you would want it to be. Like, the more you read the Bible during the week, probably the more you go to church on Sundays, and the less you read the Bible during the week, the less you go to church on Sundays, which is ironic because if you're not reading it during the week, you ought to be going on Sunday to get it, right? So that's one reason. But more importantly than that is just a chance to connect with God's people.
Yeah.
Because that's one of the key ways that the Holy Spirit works in us is through our relationships with each other, which is why Hebrews says, do not forsake the assembling of yourselves together as the manner of some is.
And it literally says, "Do not."
Do not.
Right.
Do not forsake.
Do not forsake.
Right. Now, does that mean you can't ever miss?
Correct. Yes, you can never miss.
All right. So from the mouth of Steve,
You may never
miss church.
No.
You miss church sometimes.
I know, that's what I was going to say.
Traveled out, like when you were out west and all your rampaging through the national parks.
Yes.
I thought you moved. So.
I was hoping I could. I was hoping no one would just notice I was gone.
Did you like
We
on
noticed.
Sundays though? Did you go to church?
No, because oftentimes we were there's not close to any type of church that we could go to.
All right. So you were a pastor's kid?
Oh yeah.
So when you were a kid, when you went on vacation, did you guys just go find a church?
No, usually no, because so my family, there was a difference between vacations and trips, and trips had a purpose to them. Vacation was so we didn't really do a lot of vacationing, but
Like visited family.
And so when we would visit, I grew up first half of my childhood in Florida, and then we moved to Missouri. So when we would travel to Florida to visit our friends, well, they were all ministry people, so we went to church with them and stuff. I don't think when we went on trips for fun, I think I think my dad was like, "This is I'm actually taking a day off," know, and
Yeah, that's not my experience at all.
Yeah, we're gonna go visit all these churches.
No,
You went to church no matter
oh,
what.
I have so many stories. We could fill a podcast with my stories as a kid of going to church on vacation.
Yeah.
Like we would literally just find a church sometimes, and the results were hilarious.
Well, here's my argument to this: is that for those who it's their job to do church, it's like sometimes that like when coming back from being gone 2 Sundays, like I was craving to come back to church and to see everyone. So like for me, that was like a spiritually good thing for me to just kind of take a break from it, because it's easy to make church the wrong focus. Like attendance isn't the goal. Life change and growing closer to Jesus is, and that can look different for different people, because it's like once we start saying that walking in a building is going to be what changes us or is the goal of it, then we're kind of missing the mark of where we should even be aiming.
It's like, and it's doubly hard for us because it is our job, and so it can sometimes start feeling like your job and not church.
Yes.
And when you take that break, it's that saying, absence makes the heart grow fonder, right? You step back and then you're like, oh, I actually was really getting fed from that relationship, and I start to crave it again, and I remember, oh, it's my church too. It's not just the thing you have to do.
So when you guys are on vacation, do you watch the live stream in real time?
I usually try to. Usually though, I'm up early texting Matt. Everything going okay?
I want to say, but like the past 2 vacations we've had where we were gone, like missing Sundays, I don't even think I would have had the option to do it. I would, when we get in the
you
car,
were completely off the grid.
Basically, I mean, maybe you could, but you'd probably struggle to get. I mean, definitely the previous summer. This one,
are you a prepper?
Like in the sense of like,
as soon as somebody doesn't say no,
I mean,
are you talking about
as soon as they start to
like getting ready for a bunker?
As soon as they start to qualify it.
Well, I don't know what you're talking about. So I'm just trying to figure out. Like, are you saying like, do I like have canned food items and water and like ready for the zombie apocalypse? No.
Oh, okay.
But do I prepare for things? So yes, I like to be prepared.
My strategy in case of a zombie apocalypse is to get bit early, because the zombies have
join the winning team.
Join the winning team. Zombies seem to have more fun.
Well, I would think the zombie apocalypse is not going to be as cool as Hollywood makes it.
So I actually, for a long time, thought about writing a book, and that could turn into a series of books.
The Christian Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse,
called Left Behind with the Zombies. But listen to this. This is the whole concept is that the rapture is actually more of a spiritual rapture than a physical rapture. And so the bodies of all of the Christians who are left behind are the zombies.
I just see a zombie Kirk Cameron.
Yeah. Well, no. So, I mean, I thought deeply enough about this that I actually had the plot planned out, like that it would start in like this little Midwestern town, and they would make their way to the Mississippi. They'd find a houseboat and take the houseboat down to the Gulf of Mexico, where they'd find a bigger boat, like a yacht, and take that across the Atlantic and into the Mediterranean, so that they could actually end up in Jerusalem at Armageddon. So, I mean, I think it'd be a pretty cool book series.
So if you're in publishing and
give me a call, give me a call. Now that
it could be straight to audiobook.
Now that we have Ron on staff, I could start writing it. Straight to audio.
So we had that meeting Sunday night, and Ron got up and referenced the podcast about how
nobody raised. So how many of you watch the podcast?
One person in the very middle of the room.
Total crickets.
Wait, we have a podcast?
But I think he's a little salty with you guys in last week talking about how old he was. But
wasn't me.
No, I guess
it was Steve. Yeah.
No, but you did say you hired him.
Well, I said that last night too.
Okay.
No, I mean, no, I'm not hiding that. I'm not ashamed of that. All right. So Ron
does make all of us look better.
All that simple. all that simply to say you should go to church on Sunday.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I expect both of you who are watching this to be at church on Sunday.
oh boy.
Yep.
All right.
So we're in a Roman study right now
We
on
are.
Sunday. So I thought it'd be fun to ask a couple questions about
Sounds
Romans. So let's just jump right into it here. So in Romans 28, it says God works every 8:28. Sorry, I missed the second half of that.
I was like, there's 28 chapters. We're going to be in
No.
this book forever.
In my head, I said the 8 part. In Romans 8:28, it says that God works everything together for good, right?
Right.
But
Why is 6 afraid of 7?
because 7, 8, 9. So there's a but here with this. If God really loves us as much as that says, right?
Yeah.
And we say, then why does he let us suffer? I mean, so I think that's a logical way for people to think, because we often think suffering is something we shouldn't do, or is a result of a bad thing, or we should avoid suffering.
Yeah. So, that's part of the sermon yesterday was about suffering.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of the sermon was about suffering. And I feel a little bit like we took more of an intellectual approach than an emotional approach. I mean, sometimes when you preach on suffering, it's I want to get to your feels and help you feel better about this. And yesterday was more of just hey, stop feeling.
Yeah.
Here's the truth that you need to know. So maybe it's good to go back and talk a little bit about the why that's behind suffering.
So do you think that people, did you get people after the sermon coming up and, asking any type of questions along that side of hey, why was that so logical?
Like they were angry?
No, either.
Why don't you have empathy with me?
Yeah, maybe.
No.
I mean, sometimes you do
because-
have people come up and say, "Hey, why didn't you say this?"
Right.
Or
I don't think
this is
so.
my experience. Why didn't you
Yeah.
go this direction?
I didn't get any of that, and it wasn't like I was mean and harsh.
Right.
It was more talking about at a head level and a knowledge level and a truth level, which we need to understand and know the truth.
Yeah.
But I think let's talk about the why behind suffering, and we like to ask the question, why does God allow suffering to happen? And that question assumes that God's able to stop the suffering, which I would say He is, right? But when you're making that assumption that God is able to stop suffering, what you really are saying is, I believe that God is in control of everything. And so if I believe that God is in control of everything, and I believe that He allows suffering, I have to come to a conclusion that either He doesn't like me or He thinks the suffering is good for me, right?
Yeah.
So in some of the services, I said this well, and in some of the services, I didn't say this well. Fortunately, the one that's online is one that I said it well. So let me do this.
Okay.
So I think what we have to do is we have to take God's love and God's wisdom and God's power, and we have to put all three of those together, because that's who God is, right? God knows everything. That's His wisdom. God is all powerful. And let's just say that if God is the creator, and we say that He is, and if He raised Jesus from the dead, and He did, then clearly He's all powerful. He can do anything He wants. And then we also say that God is all loving. Now, if you put those three together, what that means is that God loves us, so He desires what is best for us, right? Now, we all would say, I think we would all say about each other, that we desire what is best for each other, right? The problem is, Steve, I don't always know what's best for you, right? Sometimes I think I have some ideas, and other times I'm like, man, I don't know what to do with you.
Yeah.
Right? I do dig that hat, though.
You like that?
I think your outfit is smart today.
Why is that?
It's just,
Are you trying to give me a compliment, or
Smart.
you really think that?
Wait, somebody can't give a compliment and think it? No.
Yeah.
I think,
Yeah. I do that. I don't do that a lot,
He's
but
like,
I
"Oh,
do.
I do that
it
all
from
the time."
I do it from time to time. Maybe I'm trying to get on someone's
No,
good
I
side.
think,
you know?
I like the hat and I like the shirt on their own,
Okay.
right? Now, I wouldn't wear that shirt because that material,
Yeah, like a fleece. It's hot.
No, it hurts my teeth.
What?
It's like clingy.
There's certain materials that I just can't touch.
Okay.
Yeah, that's one of them.
like
I wouldn't even do my felt joke with you
Okay.
on that one because I just don't want to touch it.
You
But-
don't like the texture. It's a texture thing.
Yeah, but I
Okay.
like the look of it.
I have the same thing with dry things where like I just
Okay,
hate the
sure.
texture.
Yeah.
I get
But-
I see what you're saying. When you say hurt your teeth, it just feels it.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So that hat is an interesting color, though.
Uh-huh.
I don't think it's easy probably to put that hat together with an outfit that really works. But what I like is that the browns in the shirt really
Yeah.
work well with the hat.
Uh-huh.
But then the blues are fantastic. So yeah, I think it's a smart outfit. So all right. Anyways, so God, because God loves us, He desires what's best for
Yeah.
us. But because God is all wise,
Yeah.
He actually always knows what is best for us. Right? There's never a time when God doesn't know what's best for us, which is fantastic. However, Him desiring what's best for us and knowing what's best for us doesn't necessarily mean He's going to do what's best for us unless He's also all powerful.
Yeah.
And then that kind of connects the whole thing. So we know that He loves us, so He desires what's best. We know that He's wise, so He knows what's best.
Yeah.
But we also know He's all powerful, so He can do whatever He wants. And if He
Right.
loves us and if He knows, then He will do. And so we can trust that He will do what's best for us. So now we just have to apply that truth to our suffering. And understand that, if I believe that God could stop my suffering, and I also believe that He's loving, wise, and powerful, then I have to learn how to trust that He's doing what's best for us. And as humans, trust is difficult
Yeah.
for us.
Do you think there's a mind shift that happens when you can accept that
Yes.
philosophy on life?
Yeah, absolutely. I think
And what do you think that shift is? Like, what do you think takes place when you're like, this is the order of life, this is the way I was created? How do you think what does that change about us?
I think it brings peace and calm.
Yeah.
I think calm is a great word, maybe. I think probably this was the most formative piece of my 30s.
Yeah.
Was coming to this understanding that when I can't control something, I have to rely on the person who can.
Yeah.
Because I'm a control freak, right? By nature, I want to. You guys are like, oh no, you're supposed to be like, no, you're not at all like that.
Oh no, you're definitely not a control person.
By nature, I want to.
I don't think you're that bad, honestly.
I hope I'm better than I used to be.
Yeah.
But by nature, I want to control everything in my life.
Yeah.
And that makes it really hard to suffer because that's out of your control. And so I think when you come to this understanding that I don't have to control it, I don't have to fix it, I don't have to change it, what God desires for me is to simply respond correctly to it. And responding correctly to it means I trust Him that He knows what He's
Yeah.
doing, and then B, I look for the benefits in it. Like, what can I learn from this? How can I gain from this? But then C, I also don't allow this suffering to rule my life. And this is where we get back to gratitude. Like, how often do we come back to gratitude?
I think that the two things actually go together because I think that maybe the younger generation especially wants things and wants them right now. And when they see other people having the things that they want to have, that there's a lot of like, why did they get to have this and I don't? Why is God doing, like, why wouldn't God bless me with these things or wanting more than we have? I think those two things go together also because you can't truly be content if we always want more and we're thinking like, why me?
Yeah.
'Cause that's
Whenever you see something that you want and you
Yeah.
don't have, you feel like you're suffering.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's
And
where contentment comes in.
Right, and that's
Yeah.
a false suffering.
It absolutely
Well,
is.
and
Right.
that's where I think sometimes we are so quick to say the word suffer and be like, oh, I'm suffering. It's like, no, you're just uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It's not, or you're just not content. Like it's not actually suffering. It's just not necessarily a positive thing in your life.
Well, one of my favorite things that, for me personally, that you say is that, I don't have it because God didn't want me to have it.
Right.
And when you have that mindset, you're like, oh, I really do have everything I'm supposed to have. So this is actually the life that God wants me to have. The life I am currently living is the life that God wants me to have. I mean, does He want to truly bless us? When you have an attitude of gratitude,
Nice.
you can be blessed in any situation, right?
Yeah.
So where I am is where God wants me to be. Am I always working and always moving towards that? Yes, all my wise decisions can lead to God continuing to bless me.
Right.
But we also need, if we can be content, then we can be content in all situations, no matter if we have a lot or we have a little. God has me right where he wants me to be.
Yeah. I believe the great theologian Sheryl Crow said.
Pave parking lot and put up paradise.
No, said, what is
just
it?
had deja
It's
vu.
not getting what you want. It's not having what you want. It's wanting what you have. Right. That's from Soak Up the Sun.
Okay.
One of her deepest works. Yeah.
I like the pave paradise.
Put up a parking lot.
Yeah.
You guys had this conversation like 6 episodes ago.
We did.
No, it's longer than that.
I don't even remember it at all.
One of the things I've discovered, I've learned about preaching, is that I can actually repeat myself, and people don't know.
You should try to drop the same story.
Oh, I
for
just
multiple
did.
Sundays in a row.
I just did not very long ago, and like not a single person said it. And I'm not. I didn't read anybody's eyes. Like,
You know why that is?
because they don't listen.
Well, I was gonna say they don't come to church.
Right.
Once a month, you're gonna miss some stuff.
Yeah, you could just preach the same sermon for a month straight.
And just see what happens.
See what happens.
Yeah, maybe I will. All right. Should we ask another question?
Whoops.
Whoops.
Okay. What would you say to people who want to study Romans on their own, but it's kind of a tricky book of the Bible? What are some tips and tricks you might have to effectively study Romans?
Right. Yeah. So Romans is tough to read the first time you go through it.
Yeah.
So you liked some other translations. What are the translation you would recommend?
I do. So I'm just gonna say where I am right now because it changes. But I have been into listening to Proverbs in the Message. I know that's not a translation; that's a paraphrase. But I like it because, like, specifically for Proverbs, it's about. It's not necessarily always about the words. It's about the actions of Proverbs, the practical advice giving, and putting that in a modern day context sometimes helps my mind with it. So I wouldn't normally go straight to the Message, but I'm into that. I really like the NLT just because I'm not a super strong reader.
NLT stands for
New Living Translation. So I like that one because it's written at like an 8th grade reading level and it's very straightforward. You don't have to think a ton about it. That's why I like it. But I wouldn't say study from this because you really probably need to go back to more of an accurate translation, which I like the ESV for that. But I know I can't remember, we talked about another one that's becoming
ESV stands for
English Standard Version. So I think that, NIV is good too. That's probably where I have the majority of stuff like that I can remember in my head because that's what I grew up on is the NIV.
Yeah.
And I think that's a solid translation too. Yeah. It's probably still the most widely used
I think it
translation.
probably is. I think the
it's-
ESV is closing it.
Yeah, I would agree. That seems to be kind of like the standard of people who
and
read
the newest
Bible
version
now.
is that's gaining traction.
Yeah.
In,
What is it?
in
I
some
can't-
circles is the CSB. It used to be the Holman.
Yeah. So it's Christian Standard.
Christian
Bible.
Standard.
I
Yeah.
can't-
So and I think it's fair, like what you just said about the NLT.
Yeah.
If you're just starting out reading the Bible,
Yeah.
I'd go with the NLT. Like
It's
at
a
first.
good mix.
It is the easiest to read.
Yes.
It
Yeah,
is-
especially in Romans.
Especially in Roman, because it's very like the goal is to make it very straightforward, to not have to like, what does this word mean? Like it tries to be very plain, but stick to the author's original intent.
Well, that's
you
what's
know?
hard with.
You're never gonna hit it because it's not written in English.
Yeah.
Straight up, not written in
Well,
English. so
and
there's always gonna be
Paul
shortcomings.
is notorious for just these
Right.
run-on sentences
Yeah.
and paragraphs that should have been, it's a sentence, but it should have been a paragraph. And the NLT, I want to say, it kind of cleans that up a little bit, makes it a little more easier to pull the thoughts versus just reading it as one whole thing.
Yeah. So I want to come back to what you just said about Paul, but just real quick so people can understand the difference between translations. So the Bible's originally written in different languages. Old Testament is mostly Hebrew, a little bit of Aramaic. New Testament, mostly Greek, a little bit of Aramaic. So your translations do one of two things. They either take the original language and translate it word for word, like this Greek word becomes this English word, or they go phrase for phrase and they try to keep the meaning. So the New International Version, which is pretty standard for a lot of people, is a phrase for phrase, meaning for meaning translation, which is why it reads a little bit better than the ESV, because the ESV, which is the English Standard Version, and that's what I preach from, is a word for word. So if you really like the words, and obviously I like the words. The ESV is really good for that. The NLT is a phrase for phrase, which is why it's a little easier to read. Now the hard thing with Romans is like John was just saying, Paul rambles. And sometimes with Paul you get a clause within a clause within a clause within a clause, and it's like I forgot what the original point was. And so you really have to kind of dig down and do that. So let me give a couple of quick hints for people as they read Romans. Now, if you were in church on Sunday, and if you weren't, you can go back and watch the sermon online. What we noticed in the second half of Romans 8 was this pattern that Paul was doing, where he was contrasting present suffering with glory. And he was putting this time element on it, that this is now and that's later. And what I just want to point out is you don't have to go to seminary to see something like that in a passage, right? That's not some magic trick that I learned because I'm a pastor. It's something that came to me in my study because of what I do in my study that anybody can do, which is just ask some simple questions. So here's some of the questions that I ask when I'm studying any passage in the Bible. I look for action words. I look for people, like who are the people in this? I look for time-based words. So when I see words that are time-based, like present or waiting or future, I make a note of that and I say, okay, I want to pay attention to this. But a big one is I look for comparisons and contrasts, and I look for words that are repeated. And as you look for all of these kinds of things, what you eventually start to see is these patterns emerging. And as the patterns emerge, they help you kind of understand a little bit more. So all that to say, a great tool to practice this is the Renew Journal, because the Renew Journal actually walks you through some of these exercises every week on these passages and can help you dig a little bit deeper. But to anybody who's trying to study Romans on their own, what I would say is start with the typical questions you would ask about anything, which is who, what, where, when, why, and how. And just read the passage asking those questions. Who is this about? Where did this happen? Why is he saying this? What is he saying? How should I do this? Those kind of things. That's a great place to start. And then use the Renew Journal.
And I find that you have to start somewhere. So if you are just getting going on it, it may seem very daunting task at first, but the more you do it, the better you're going to get at it. So just start it, and then you pick up little tips and tricks. I like having a study Bible where I can have stuff right below as I'm reading to get a little bit of extra context when I'm just want to have a quick glance, or going deeper when I really I'm always much like, that doesn't make sense to me. I need to learn a little bit more about that, and then dig into it till I'm like, and I find as I dig into it more, I don't know if you have the same experience where it's just kind of like, there's a moment where all the pieces kind of come together and you're like, okay, I see where they're going with this. I see the main theme. I see what the message is. And then what maybe if I'm, writing it to teach, of what message I would like to teach out of it.
It's kind of like the Matrix.
Kind of like the Matrix.
All of a sudden you start seeing everything.
You have all these pieces and you're starting to answer all the questions and then get a theme and put that theme into something that you're passionate about and you feel that this is the right context to teach on.
Sometimes it emerges really quickly. And sometimes it's 7:30 Sunday morning and you're still looking.
I was wondering if that happens to you, where you're like,
not very often, but there are mornings when I get up on Sunday and I'm
you're like, I have to pick the direction I'm going in. I'm gonna pick this one, but I'm not 100% about this.
And sometimes it changes between the first and second service.
Okay. And beyond that, there are a lot of just good online resources that exist.
Tons.
I think there's questions.org, I think is one of them. I believe that's what it is.
There's that. There's I like BibleHub.com.
BibleHub
That's one that I use. BibleGateway.com is another one. The YouVersion Bible app
Yep.
is really helpful for this kind of stuff. If you want to go a little bit deeper, there are resources like that where you can go deeper. There's this one called Precept Austin, and go there, and that is just an incredible wealth of information that you can get.
I'm a big fan of Bible Project for
Bible Project
for
gives-
overviews because it also gives you pictures.
Yeah, I love I just get on YouTube and I search sermon on whatever passage.
yeah.
And
See, I'm
usually
always
can find somebody.
like
right,
sometimes it pick, especially if you were to be hyper specific,
Yeah.
like Romans 8:28. You get some odd stuff popping up on that stuff.
I usually
That's why I'm
use
a
your
little bit-
discernment, and if you know, recognize a pastor and you trust them, I usually
let's
start there.
let's
But
just throw out some names real quick. So if you do that, like go on
Cleflo
YouTube,
Dollar pops up.
go on YouTube, and like say you type in like I'm studying Romans 8, so sermons on Romans 8.
Yeah.
Okay. So if I see Skip Heitzig, I'm hitting it. Right.
That's what I was
It's
gonna-
gonna be awesome. Skip's great. And Skip has pretty much done every passage in the Bible.
his church, they do like a Wednesday night thing, and he has gone through
Yeah.
verse by verse,
Right.
like everything. It's
So
amazing.
so he's going to be good. I would say J.D. Greer. If I see J.D. Greer, I'm going to be happy with that.
He has got a lot of content on Right Now Media too.
He does. Tony Evans, and I know Tony's got whatever his thing, but whatever that is, it doesn't discount the great content he's put out for decades.
Yeah.
So Tony Evans is fantastic. I'd always do that. I mean, so John MacArthur, right?
Yeah.
A lot of baggage there.
Yeah.
Right. A lot of things I'd say I'm not a huge fan of some things, but when it comes down to simple Bible exposition, pretty good stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
His preaching is
So,
yeah.
And there are people who are. You should not only listen to preachers you 100% agree with on everything.
Right.
It is okay to understand that, hey, I think he's a great Bible teacher. He and I are going to disagree on this thing, and still I can gain something from that.
Correct.
Because like Skip and John MacArthur would be on very different
Right. Yeah.
spectrums of theological and doctrine, but you just said both of them are great places to look. So
and Skip comes out of the Calvary Chapel movement, and honestly, most of the time, if you see Calvary Chapel, it's going to be a pretty good verse by verse walkthrough of whatever you're studying. So that's not a bad thing either.
Yeah.
So that's another place to look.
Okay, well, last question
Last question
is, so if someone missed the all-church meeting last night, what would you say to those people who missed it?
Why?
Why did you miss?
Why did you? No.
There was a lot of people.
Yeah, we had a great time.
yeah.
Yeah, people are always surprised at how fun our church meetings are, right? Like we don't have any anger. Nobody's standing up and waving the church
Said if you-
bylaw.
You got to go out to
And,
the parking lot for that.
Yeah. So are we going to have it online?
Yep. I'm hoping to get it out today.
Wow.
So it will
Okay.
be in our Facebook group, the Gathering Community group. And if you're not in that group, just shoot one of us an email and we'll get you the link.
Q&A part going to be?
I gotta make sure
figure
that's
out
okay. to post,
I
so.
think it is.
All right.
We'll have to talk through. I don't remember any questions that can't go on.
Yeah.
I don't think there were.
I didn't
We
get to
gave out
listen to the whole
we
thing.
gave out your address. Is that okay?
I know that we gave out where you're
didn't-
living.
No, I did not.
I put that
I'm
as the
pretty
lower
sure,
third.
I'm pretty sure you may have dropped something there, but no, I didn't get to. I got to watch
I
the
didn't even
beginning.
give
I
the
went
zip
back
code.
and checked on the kids, and I ended up going outside and helping them. And I came back in because the Q&A was going on, and that was like that seemed pretty fun. The Q&A part.
Yeah, the whole meeting was great. You know, it's if you've ever been in like a Baptist church where they've had problems, those meetings are awful. But we don't do those. I don't think in all of my time here we've ever had an adversarial church meeting.
We should switch to Robert's rules and make everyone.
So we
mutually-
are now looking for a new connections pastor.
where you have to, if you don't word your question properly, it's not answered.
Did
I think we should do Jeopardy rules. So
was-
you have to ask your question as an answer.
In my last church, in the midst of some of the really bad stuff. Oh, we may need to talk a little bit about that.
All right.
The last church.
In my
or-
last church, so in one of the last church meetings,
Yeah.
like at the very beginning of the meeting, this guy jumps up before the meeting to be like, "I move that we hold this meeting according to Robert's Rules of Order." and this is the worst part. We literally spent over an hour debating whether or not to use Robert's
Who is
rules
this Robert? I need to
of
find out
order.
who he is.
Yeah, it's just terrible stuff.
The
we don't
worst.
do that.
The worst meetings are run in Robert's rules. You know it's already going to be a terrible
I move
meeting.
that we end this podcast.
I second the motion.
I second the motion.
Any
Oh, wait.
discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Fair
Bye.
enough. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back here next week.
Best ending ever.